Good evening. I am going to try to recreate the Pear Deck session that was held this morning. A lot of people didn't get to sign in. Before I begin, I will tell you that my name is Christine Snow. I am the ITF at Instructional Technology Facilitator at Salem, Mull, Hildebrand, and Ray Childers. In the session this morning, I had the help of Teresa Castelaw, who's another ITF at several schools, Eichard, Drexel, Valdez, Hillcrest. Okay, and then we also had a teacher, a third grade teacher from Hildebrand, Brandy Moody. They're not going to be in this recording, but they were very helpful during our session this morning and also preparing for this presentation. I seem to do better in my recordings when I have total control and I can start and stop them. So that's how I decided I would share the information from our slideshow today. So I am recording in Loom, and I will be piecing together different videos that I took in QuickTime into this presentation to show what's happening on my iPad and how I'm connecting my iPad to the session. So you hopefully got a chance to sign up for this session and attended, but we did reach 100 participants and several others were trying to wait in the waiting room. So that's the purpose of this recording. Hopefully you find it helpful. Our emails are included here. If you have any questions, feel free to email. We did try to share out some examples of how Pear Deck looks to a student when it's run in student-paced mode, where they are in charge of the slideshow and they move their way through the slides and answer on the slides they choose to answer, come back to and edit slides, and that would stay open until the teacher closes that session. So if you look at this screen, you could join one of these sessions. It is still open, and you would do the link where you go to www.joinpd.com and then enter the code for one of these sessions. I'm going to leave them open so that if people are watching this video, they could still participate in the student sessions to get a feel for it if you have never done it before. Okay, I am recording a section of the training session for our Pear Deck activities today. This part is going to show what it looks like for a student to participate in a Pear Deck session that is in student-paced mode. So I am sharing my iPad screen, or recording my iPad screen through QuickTime. This shows the setup I use when I connect my iPad to my computer using the charging cable plugged into my computer at the USB port. Then I'm going to turn on QuickTime on my computer and start a new movie recording. Next to the red record button, there's a place to click on an arrow that you can select the source for that video, and I choose the iPad. I would sign in to Google, and then I would go and do a search for joinpd.com. It comes up with the login screen, and you could share that login with your students in a variety of ways. It could go in a Class Dojo post, could go on your weekly list of assignments that you share on your website, or Dojo message, Google Classroom assignment, or a Seesaw assignment. Later we'll talk about another way you can share a direct link. So I am now in as a student in the activity. And this one happens to be a 4th grade Eureka Math lesson. I have downloaded the Eureka Math PowerPoint slides or Google Classroom slides that are shared online at Engage New York, and then I have just modified it into a Pear Deck session. I've also, on the first slide, linked it to a video. So this is what it looks like for the student. My title slide is over to the left, and it could be an informational slide, but I just put a title slide, and they're supposed to click on the video at the bottom, and the video would start. It is a YouTube video of another teacher teaching this lesson, and it's going to come up with commercials, of course. Okay, you're not going to hear the video because my headphones are plugged into the computer recording my voice instead of into the iPad itself, but the students would be able to hear it if they had the speaker going. And so here's his lesson. It's showing them how they're supposed to work on Lesson 1, Module 1 of Eureka Math. They can close that window and go right back to Safari, and when they go back to Safari, they're still in their Pear Deck session. This is student pace, so the student can move through. They have the tools at the bottom. So on this page, I'm supposed to be practicing my times tables. My pencil is way too big, so I would erase that mark. If I click on the pencil and then this circle above the pencil, right there, the sizer, it lets me make a smaller pencil mark. And I would rather have a very small pencil mark. Some kids do better with a stylus. So I'm just supposed to go through here and answer these questions. I don't have to finish a page if I don't want to. At the top there is an audio flag that tells me if I click here, I'm supposed to get some audio. Once again, since I am, I got to click on the headphones, not plugged into the headphones at this point, and my headphones are not plugged into the iPad, you might not hear it, but it plays the audio out loud, my directions for the student to hear. They do have to click at the bottom right corner where that headphones image is, and then they also have to click on the arrow to get it to play. And that is a recording of my voice. I move through to the next slide. I can jump around and skip and do whichever slides I wanted to. Hopefully I would do them all before I finish the activity. So on this page, it says label the place value chart, fill in the blanks to make the following equation true, draw the disk to place in the place value chart to show your answer, use arrows to show bundling. So I'm supposed to have 4 hundreds times 10. So I would pick my pencil, I might make it a little bit bigger so that my sizer is actually like a dot in my chart. And I'm supposed to have 4 hundreds. Before I start tapping my hundreds, I'm supposed to label the sections of the slide. So when I get the handles, I can move it around. I tap on the screen, and since I'm in the text tool, that T at the bottom, it just lets me tap the screen and something comes up where I can get my keyboard to type. When it has those blue handles, I can resize or drag it around. Basically, this is what the students are supposed to be doing, answering the questions. And on this particular activity, since I'm supposed to have 4 hundreds times 10, I would tap 4, and then I'm supposed to have 10 sets of those. So students are going to make an array. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sets of 4. I would teach my kids how to make a smaller, different color line to show the bundles. So this bundle is going to move over here. Another bundle of 10 would move over here. And of course I should go back and put a dot for each bundle of 10 I'm putting into the thousands category. Kids will get better at this as they work on it. So needless to say, this is how it works. 2 more bundles that need to move over here. And then they would type in their answer. Pretty simple. Students can turn off the activity anytime they want. I only finished 3 or 4 slides in the slideshow, but I can come back at any point. As long as I sign back in the same way, my work is still here until the teacher ends the session. Hopefully that is helpful to show you a little bit about how it looks in student-paced mode. So let me get started. I'm going to be jumping back and forth between screens. This is the Pear deck that I shared this morning. And if you go back to the PD session choice board for this week, this particular page is linked. So you can get to all of these active links, but you can also get to a copy of the presentation slides right here. And you can make a copy and keep those for your record if you choose to. It might be helpful because I did try to embed hyperlinks to things that you might want to find out more about if you are maybe just beginning Pear Deck or beginning with slides and you need some more help. One of the things that we talked about is why teachers like Pear Deck. One of the things that is very helpful is that the teachers have a dashboard. And I'm going to show how that looks on an iPad in a little bit. The teacher dashboard, if you were in a live session or even in a student-paced session, lets you look at and monitor the students' work in real time. If the students are working from home or in your classroom, you could have on your computer or your iPad the dashboard open, and you could see exactly what students are working on. It'll tell you who hasn't even began to work on a certain question, or you can watch as they're actually writing on the slide or typing on the slide to see how their work is coming. There are templates to help you create activities in Pear Deck. There's also what's called a student takeaway. You can choose to publish, and it's a copy of the slides that you have created with each student's individual work on it, and a place where you can add feedback so that the students, when you publish those takeaways, get a copy of all the work they did and all the content you have put into the Pear Deck, but also feedback you have. Especially in a remote learning environment we're in now, student-paced mode is probably one of the best ways to use Pear Deck at this time. That way you could talk about and show the kids what you want them to work on when they're not in a Zoom session with you. They would have time all day or whenever they get to it to finish or work on that activity. And then your next Zoom session in the morning, you could pull up the teacher dashboard and you could show some of the examples of things that kids were working on that maybe they did a great job on, or maybe some things that they didn't get quite right and you want to talk about some of the misconceptions. You can also, in a live session or even not a live session, add questions to a Pear Deck that's already running. You can star answers in your dashboard as the ones you want to make sure to talk about, and you can lock the slideshow at any point to stop the kids from working, especially in a classroom setting where they're live with you in a session. You can lock it. That way they have to look up and you have a chance to reteach or get their focus or go over something that maybe has become pretty clear in the students' work that you need to go back over. So how do you get started? There are several ways to get started with Pear Deck. This particular slide is showing you how to get started if you are in a Google slideshow. So I'm going to jump over to a slideshow that I have already gotten created. This is the one that I've highlighted in several parts of my presentation today. It's a Google slideshow. I've created it with screenshots right from the Engage New York or the Eureka Math session, and all I've done is take screenshots of the pages that the students are supposed to be working on. So when I'm building in slides, right now I have the slideshow open, and I could at any point insert a slide and add something, whether it's my own something that I've typed it in, some directions, or maybe I want to add a video. So I've found a video on YouTube that I like. It's going to be just a quick review of multiplying by 10. Of course, I would preview it before I attached it, but I'm ready to share that video with my class by adding it to the slide. So I'm going to copy the URL, and then I'm going to go back to my slideshow, and I'm going to insert a video. I have several choices. I could do a YouTube search right here, but I copied the URL, so I just have to paste it. And it shows me what it looks like. I'm going to select that video, and it's going to go right onto my slide. I can resize it. I would resize it just by clicking a corner of the slide instead of clicking either in the middle or on the top or the bottom. If I click here, it distorts the shape of the video. And if people were in there or items were in there that need to stay in the correct dimension, that would be it would make it look a little bit weird. So I'm going to make it correct. So let's say that I want to add one of the slides that is a template from Pear Deck. I haven't even got Pear Deck running yet. I would have to click on add-ons if I've never done it before, and then I would go where it says get add-ons, and it would pull up this window where I can search for add-ons, and I would do a search for Pear Deck. Now my Pear Deck is already installed, but if it wasn't, I would come up here and I would click on Pear Deck for Google Slides add-on. It would pull it up, and then I would ask it to be downloaded or added to my Google Chrome as an add-on for Google Chrome. Since mine is already there, and since I use it all the time, I actually have it on this side. But some of you may have to click where it says Pear Deck and then open Pear Deck add-on. Once I do that, the Pear Deck window appears on the side, And some things I can do is I can open their template library. They have templates for slides that I could add at the beginning of a slideshow, the middle of a slideshow, the end of a slideshow. There's some critical thinking, social emotional, all kinds of different templates that I could pick. So we're in math. I'm not sure what I'm going to come up with, but there are some slides already created that would go along with math. These don't seem to be, well, I could put it here if I wanted. Let's say I click that, and where my cursor is at, where this yellow line is at, the slide I just selected is going to show up. It moved these two apart and inserted a slide. Now what I'm supposed to do, it says solve, enter your problem here. So I would have to come up with a question to put in, and I would say, so I've entered my question and I borrowed a slide template. It came from here, it came in, it has the interactive feature already attached. It has this box, drawing box, that I can move around if I want to. I'm assuming that this yellow box is where I would want the students to put a specific answer. And so that would be something maybe I would train them to. But there are lots of other slides that you could add. This particular section is math, if you remember, but I can click back and I can choose any other kind of template that I wanted. The beginning of a lesson, maybe I want to add a question. I'm going to move my cursor right here, and I could add a question that makes them think back about what they did yesterday. This particular slide is not a drawing slide. This slide tells that they're going to write a response, and that would be probably typing in. It's going to be a text response. If this was not already on here, this slide is no longer interactive. If I choose the slide and accidentally erase the interactive feature, or I design a slide of my own, I can always go back to this particular section in the Pear Deck window, and I can decide I do want this to be a text answer. And it's going to tell me it's working, making my current slide interactive. And when a slide is interactive, this particular image appears at the bottom, and it'll say, don't change this link. That means that has to stay there. It's a trigger in your Pear Deck session when you go live, that the students, live or student-paced, that the students will have the opportunity, a window will appear over to the side of your slide where they would type in an answer. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful on how to get started inside of a Google slideshow. There is another way. Instead of opening just a regular Google slideshow, you could go to the Pear Deck website. And all I did is do a search for peardeck.com. And I am already a member. All of us are. You just have to link your account. So I click on a teacher and I click on login with Google. And on the website, I have the option of going ahead and creating a lesson in Google Slides. I can click right here, and it's going to open my Google Slides, an empty slideshow where I could start creating my own material. It does give me some information about how to get started. Tells me what I'm supposed to do. Right now, it's just open to Google Slides. The add-on is not there at the moment. So it's telling me that I'm going to go to add-ons, and I'm going to pick Pear Deck. Now my Pear Deck is on the side because I do it quite often, but you would pick Pear Deck and get it to open. And then now I have the option of creating just in regular slides over here, or using the template and the interactive tools on this side. When my Pear Deck is open, my Pear Deck features are open, one of the things I can do is start to add audio to a slide. I don't really want audio on this particular slide, so I'm going to jump back. Okay, so I'm going to open my Pear Deck window again, and this slide doesn't have an audio feature turned on yet. I did create the slideshow just a few minutes ago. It is interactive. The students are going to be able to draw or type right on top of this slide. But if I click here, the Add Audio feature comes up. Unfortunately, this great big huge window covers my entire slide. So there's a couple of things I might want to do to make it possible for me to read what the slide says when I'm recording. I could have an extra window open. I could shrink my screens down and have this window off to the side. I could open another session of that slideshow that I have started in a separate window, and then I can stack those two next to each other. This one does not have, it's still loading, the Pear Deck window open. This is not the window that I'm going to be recording in. This is the window I just want to read. So I'm going to slide it off to the side, and this is the slide that I want to read out loud. So in my Pear Deck window, where I'm getting ready to add the audio, I have to have it out far enough where I can click on record, but I have two windows sort of stacked together on my screen. I'm going to hit record over here, but I'm going to be looking over here to read the question. I can see it off to the side. So I click record. Got to get back in this window. Solve. Sheila has $4 and her brother has 10 times as much money. How much money does Sheila's brother have? Show your work below and put your answer in the yellow box. I click pause, and now I can bring this back over and make it full size so I can see all my options. I can resume, like if I had stopped to answer the phone or get my dog to be quiet, I could continue with more recording and add on to the 16 seconds I've already recorded, or I can click save. And now I can listen to my recording. If I don't like the recording, I could hit delete. If I'm okay with the recording, I'm going to click where it says add audio to the slide. It's working. And now, in my original slideshow, I have an extra item on the page. This is the trigger that allows the students to know there's a recording for this slide. And when I'm in student paced mode, there will be a little tiny headphones down here, and you would have to teach your students that they click on that little tiny headphone image at the bottom of the slide, and then a window will come up that has that arrow to start the recording. So that shows you the different ways you could start a slideshow. The next slide talks a little bit more about what we've already been doing. The first step in using Pear Deck with your students would be to build a slide set or open one that's already been created by another teacher. Let's say you're working in a team and they have a slideshow they want to share with you. They would share the slides the same way you would between any two teachers. You're going to click on share and you're going to add the teacher's name, and they're going to get to have either editing rights for that slideshow, or you could give them viewing rights. If you add viewing rights to the slideshow, then when they click on the link that comes in the email, they would be asked to create a copy if they want to keep it. And that way, the teacher who received that slideshow is going to get it. It's going to look just like this. And they can make copies, they can change it, they can add things, they can make the slides interactive, do whatever they want to, but they're the owner of that slideshow. If you're not sure and you want more help with how to build slides with Google Slides, this is a link that takes you to a YouTube video that shows about more information about building slides in Google Slides. This is also another link that shows you more about how to use Pear Deck with slideshow. Some of us already have PowerPoint slides built, so this link right here is going to show you how to convert a PowerPoint slide set into a Google slide set so that you can use it with Pear Deck. This is a link to a page in Pear Deck where there are several kinds of templates that you could look at. Beginning of the class templates, building communities, celebrating students, and each set of slides can be downloaded as either a Google slide set or a PowerPoint slide set. If you're interested, you could go and download those sets, and what you would have is a collection of slides that you could use. One of the nice features of this tutorial is I actually learned something during preparing for this session, is that I didn't realize I could copy entire slideshows and dump them into one I'm working on, or I could copy and add just certain selected slides into a slideshow. And that is explained in this tutorial if you click here. This last comment is to show what I've already shown you about how to use two devices, either your iPad and your computer, where you record on the computer and you read from the slideshow on your iPad. Or you could do what I demonstrated just a few minutes ago, where you have two windows side by side and you read from one copy of the slideshow and record in the other copy on the left. Teresa Castellaw did send an email to the Pear Deck representative that we deal with and asked them about trying to change this great big huge big white box so that it doesn't cover the entire slide. And the answer she got back was they would pass that on to their development team. So maybe in the next little bit there'll be an update where that big white box doesn't cover your work. In sessions I've had before, I have had several teachers say, well, Pear Deck is pretty cool, but I don't like the fact that the templates are limiting. Well, remember, the templates are not the only way you can build slides. Making screenshots of material that's available from other sources, whether it's a screenshot from your actual textbook that you have in your hand, that you take with either a camera or scan on your school copier as a PDF and then load to your computer, or it's something from the internet that you do screenshots with. Those are all great ways to get material onto the slides that you want the students to have, other than just typing it up yourself. Other teachers have said to me, well, why would I want to use Pear Deck? I just make a slideshow and I assign it to my students in Google Classroom and it gives them an individual copy of the set of slides. And that's true. That's a great way to share slides with students. But the only way the students can work in that particular set of slides is with typing. They can't really draw on the slide, and the teacher can't see all the students' answers at once. I want to talk a little bit about laying out your slides. There's a couple of ways to put images onto a slide, whether it's a screenshot or a regular image. You can insert an image, and it comes in as a movable object where I can take it and I can move it around, I can resize it, I can, it has what I call handles. I'm not sure that's the right word for it, but I can resize it. This particular page is made up of several items. I have an image at the top, an image with the question, an image where the students would do their work, and then since it's interactive, I have two items that are on there because this slide has been made interactive using the Pear Deck add-on. This particular slide is active because I've decided that I wanted this to be a drawing slide. It would originally look like this, and then I would have decided I want students to draw on this slide. So Pear Deck does a little bit of work, and it adds that gray box down at the bottom that lets me remember that this is a drawing slide, and it's going to tell you, don't change this link. This item has to stay at the bottom or the slide would not be interactive. This particular slide is not interactive. There's nothing added at the bottom. There's no audio added. And the page is laid out a little differently. It doesn't have an inserted image that's resizable and movable. I went ahead and I make this empty. Let me reset. Had a blank slide, and instead of inserting an image and uploading it from my computer like this, or I'm going to go back to where all my screenshots are. I probably won't get the same screenshot I wanted, but let's have it insert. This is one of those images that's movable. It's a screenshot I took off the Eureka or Engage New York website, and I did a screenshot using Command-Shift-5 to capture just this one question. I could also insert it differently, so it's not movable. It would be part of the background of the slide. So I'm going to click on Change Background, and then I'm going to choose an image. And I went ahead and named one particular image so it would be easier for me to find. When screenshots come on my computer, I have set it up so they go into my Documents folder in my Finder. And I named one, Choose This One, so I would have it come up the way I want to very quickly during this presentation. So now it is the background. I can't catch it. I can't move it. It's filling up the entire slide the way it is. Some of the teachers in our session this morning asked, do I need to lock these images in place? You don't need to lock them in place on a Pear Deck session because the students will not be able to move these things around. They're going to be locked as soon as I click Start Lesson. They would also be locked if I presented it just as a slideshow. Then students would only be seeing the image, not doing any interacting. If I want them to interact, I would click here where it says Start Lesson, and then it would start a session for this particular slideshow. And this slide, they would be able to draw anywhere on the slide they chose to, or type using the text tool. But you don't have to worry about locking it in place like some of us are used to doing in Seesaw. So after you have your slides built, however you wanted, whatever you want it to do, and you've added your interactive features from the customizable slides, or you've added templates that came with the interaction already there, like a slide, then the next part is how do you share the slides with your students. In a live session, you would click here and start the lesson, and then the students would get, you would decide if it's going to be instructor paced or student paced. We talked a little bit about student paced, but instructor paced would be me sharing my presentation with the students live, right now I guess possibly through a Zoom. And so people in our class were asking this morning, how do they do that? How do they have their Zoom session open and the slideshow open that they're going to be working in? You could do it nicely if kids had 2 devices. That would be the easiest way. In a classroom, the easiest way is that you show the students the presentation. That's what would be shined up on your television. It's getting ready to load. And they would see this large image that had the join code, or you could share a link, a direct link right into Google Classroom or right into Seesaw, and they could click on it, or on your weekly checklist of things to do. When I'm ready to close and get ready to talk to the students, I can click here, and then the code always stays up at the top. You could pull it back anytime you want. And then I have the dashboard for this particular section running behind. So I've got the dashboard on one window, and I would send the projection to my television. Here's the presentation screen. I'm going to close that one up. So now the students don't see anything. I would have the option of making some changes, adding a new question right in the middle of the show. This on a computer or a Chromebook, the students could have the Zoom session running as a smaller window or as 2 windows where they would jump back and forth. This would be their Zoom session, and then they would move to another window where they would have the live session where they're doing the work. So I'm recording this session to show what it would be like possibly to share your screen and have students have 2 windows open on a MacBook. I'm going to share that window, and that's what the students would see. So when they click on their Zoom window, they have one window open that is the slideshow I'm showing, and I can move from one slide to the other. But the students could have a second window open that is actually the lesson that they're signed into. So this is what the student session looks like. And so the students can move through the slides on their own, and then they can answer a question. And I hit enter, that response is there. I can add another response if I want to. If I thought of something else I want to add, I could start typing again. So when I want to see what the teacher is sharing, I would slide back to the teacher screen, which is here, and the teacher could be clicking on this. This is the dashboard, so you see my answer with my name on it. But if the teacher were to click on the presentation screen and slide backwards, they're going to see the question, and if they choose to, they could show the responses in Zoom, and the students would see the responses different kids have turned in, but not have the names next to them. The best way to do that on an iPad would be to teach the students how the home button lets them move back and forth between. So now I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share the desktop. Okay, I am recording my iPad, and on my iPad I have signed in as a student in a Zoom session. And so on the iPad, the students are going to see the presentation screen, which is my slideshow. And I can move through the questions. On the student's iPad, they have the option of switching back and forth between their Zoom window, which has the question on it, and the Pear Deck session, where they can type or click or move ahead to whatever question they need to answer. So here is my answer, and the student would be typing. Then if I ask them to come back to the session of the Zoom window, they would push the start button twice and choose the window that says Zoom. And then they're going to see what I show them. So if I show a response, here's somebody's response. It happens to be Teddy Bear because he's the only participant. But if I had more participants, their answers would be showing up here. And they could see what other people have answered. So the next thing is I have shared some tutorials. How to share a live session in Pear Deck is linked right here. How to share a student-paced activity is linked right here. And then a conversation about how Pear Deck can be used in remote learning is right here. All of our students have a link, a direct link inside of ClassLink to a Pear Deck join code. Or you could teach them how to type in or find joinpd.com and then put the code in. I'm going to make this particular part larger so you can see it. When you decide you want to do student-paced session, then you have a couple of options here. You can copy the link and then paste that direct link into either Google Classroom, Seesaw, ClassDojo, or even on one of our Bitmoji classrooms or bulletin boards where they're getting a list of hyperlinks for all the assignments or activities they're supposed to do in a certain day. If you click on this when you're in a live session, in your live show where you're getting ready to share it, it will take you to a page where you can actually design the activity right in, or the assignment right in Google Classroom. It would put the link in at the bottom, and then you would decide all the other things you normally do in Google Classroom to get the assignment prepared. When is the due date? What's the title of it? Which students get it? And some information about it. Now, one of the things I wanted to comment on is if you do it as an assignment in Google Classroom, you have to train your students a little bit about how to come back to that assignment and mark it complete. Their work is not going to be an upload to Google Classroom. Their work is going to be in their Pear Deck that you collect through Pear Deck, and you can grade either in a Google Sheet or in the takeaways that comes up. So what I did in my slideshow is I got an idea from Shanda Thomas, one of the first grade teachers at Salem. She and her team have added a slide at the end of their Pear Decks to remind the students what to do and how to turn in their work. So they're using Seesaw. What they've asked their students to do in Seesaw is to take a picture of this last slide and submit that photo to show their teacher that the activity is completed. If you're using Google Classroom, you could add a note that says, this is shared as an activity through Google Classroom as an assignment. Remember to return to that section in Google Classroom and mark this activity complete. So when I go back to Google Classroom, they can click on the assignment here again, and it would open up, but then there would be a place at the top, or if they're on an iPad, a place at the bottom where they could mark it complete. Get larger so you can see it. So down here, they're going to mark it done. They don't necessarily have to add an attachment, but they could. If they wanted to do a screenshot of that last slide, they could add the attachment and then mark it complete. It's not going to matter a whole lot, except that families might come along and they may be looking to see how many assignments that student still has to do. If this student does not mark it complete, or mark it turned in, or submit something to show it's turned in, then the family is still going to see this in their classroom assignment list. and it's going to look like they haven't turned it in. To the teacher, it's going to look like no one's turned it in. Now, the teacher can override that. They could go in and mark grades in Google Classroom if they choose to, but they don't have to. In Seesaw, this is what Shanda Thomas has for her students. She has an assignment or an activity, is what it's called in Seesaw. She's typed in the directions. They're supposed to click on the link over here to open their Pear Deck. They're supposed to click on their name. If it says you're supposed to sign in with Google, they're going to complete the pages on Pear Deck, and their teacher would automatically be able to see their work. They're supposed to take a screenshot of the last page, come back to Seesaw, click Add Assignment, and then they're going to upload the screenshot from their camera roll, then click Done. So when the teacher in Seesaw clicks on this, they can click on it and see that one student is in draft, 11 students haven't responded, and I think 8 students actually followed directions and attached their screenshot. This student is finished. This student is finished. This one, instead of adding a screenshot, has a video. Maybe that is showing a video of them doing the last page. I'm not sure. But these students did not submit anything. That doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't do the work in Pear Deck. It just means that they didn't come back to Seesaw and turn anything in. So once again, if the families check their assignment list, it's going to look like this particular student did not do the work at all. I talked a little bit about the sessions. So this is what it looks like on the Pear Deck website, where I have my sessions. I click on, and it shows me all the sessions that are open. I can click on here to open a presentation window. I can click here to see the dashboard with the students' names and their work. And then I can click here and do some other things. Publish takeaways, end the session, archive the session, rename the session, lots of choices. And that is all through the Pear Deck website. This is what the presentation controls look like in your dashboard. It shows how many slides there are. If you added notes at the bottom of your slides, like down here, you can see my notes. I could have teaching notes so that when I'm presenting either in a Zoom or up on the television in my classroom, I could be looking at my notes at the bottom to remind me what I wanted to say or do with the information on this slide. This tells me that on this particular slide, 12 students have already responded, and there are only 12 students in the session, so I'm ready to move on. I am in presentation mode. If I wanted to show students answers, if I clicked right here without starring any of their answers, it would show all the students' answers on the presentation mode, but it would not show their names. This is how you would lock a session so that no one can move or answer or do any work. This is where you would click if you wanted to add a new question right in the middle of a presentation. Maybe you thought of something, the class is discussing things, you want to do a quick check for understanding or a quick survey. This is how you open your dashboard. So if you're in presentation mode, you could click here to open the dashboard, and of course, this is how you end the session. Here's what the student dashboard looks like, and this came from a Share the Pear presentation that the company Pear Deck gave to us when we first started. It shows the teacher's dashboard again, and next to it are answers that students in this class have given. The teacher can click right here, and that would stack all these answers on top of each other, and it's going to be pretty clear and easy in a hurry how well the class agrees on what the answer is. And then, of course, I already talked about this before. I think that Pear Deck makes it possible to share student answers looking at the presentation screen. So I've talked or made a separate video that I'm going to link on here. I'm going to go into one of our sessions, and for that same slideshow I keep showing, I'm going to show you what the presentation screen looks like. So as a teacher, the presentation screen is what we would normally put up on the screen in front of the students. I'm going to close this because I don't need it right now, but this is student paced, so I can move along. Let me pull up my dashboard, and I can move along through the slideshow, maybe, if I can get to my arrows. Yep. And so I'm projecting, this is what I could have up during a Zoom to talk about the students' answers. This is one that does actually have answers, and in my dashboard I've already starred some of those answers. So if I click on show responses right here, now I'm seeing the answers that I starred. I only starred one student's answers in my dashboard, and on the dashboard the student's name would be right here. But in the presentation screen it doesn't show the student's name. It lets me show this to the whole class, all in Zoom or up on the TV in my classroom if I have live bodies in the classroom with me, and we could talk about what this particular student did. They were supposed to show 10 times 2 10s, and this person has the answer wrong. They showed 10 times 2 1s. They put the first 2 in the ones column, and then they put 10 more sets of 2 1s. This work should actually be over here, because 10 times 2 10s shouldn't be 20, it should be 200. So some students might think this is right when they look at it. They've misread this one word and got the entire question wrong. That way you could show it in a Zoom or live in your classroom up on the TV and talk about this particular wrong answer and why it is incorrect. Give the students a chance to think about what the right answer should be. Since I'm in the presentation mode, I would have to click on either hide the answers or just move along to the next question if I wanted to do it. When I end a student pace mode, it's going to give me a couple of choices. On my dashboard, it's going to ask me if I want to publish some things. The session is here. I can click and I could open my dashboard in a new window, open my dashboard on a new device, or end the session altogether. Right now my session is called Unnamed, so I could name it. This is PD, and I like to definitely put a date because I won't remember what it is, but sometimes dates help me remember. So I've saved the session. I can also go back and I can publish takeaways. So I'm back on the Pear Deck website. I'm going to click on sessions, and this time that PD session that I just named for the 4th grade Eureka Math lesson is closed. It was live. I'm going to click on end the session, and now I have the option to either publish takeaways or export to a spreadsheet. This particular lesson wouldn't go very well into a spreadsheet because almost all the slides in this slideshow are drawing slides, and the kind of answers that go best into a spreadsheet would be short answer, longer answers that they type, multiple choice kind of things. So I'm going to publish takeaways. Publish takeaways for this session. I can click on find out more and it would give me more information. Share the takeaways. I could share them to Google Classroom if it was linked to Classroom, but then I can also go to the takeaways in my Drive. So in my Drive, it's doing a little bit of work. If you notice, it said it could take up to an hour to generate the takeaways. I could close this window and come back later to check on the progress. So I closed out the session for the Eureka Math lesson, Module 1, Lesson 1, and published takeaways. Since I was a student in that class, I received an email in my personal account because I signed in with my personal account to the Pear Deck, and I can open this document to see what that takeaway looks like. So a takeaway is a Google Doc that shows what was happening. If I want to, I can type in this slide right here. It says in this space, summarize your thoughts on this lesson. Then it shows part 2, all the responses. On the left is the slide that the teacher shares with the links attached. And on the right, there would be things that were attached, like my answers or feedback from the teacher. So this is the link that takes us to the lesson for Lesson 1. Here is my answers. And if I had feedback from the teacher, the feedback would come at the bottom of the slide. I was going to see if there was any. I thought I gave some feedback, but I did not. This document is shared between the teacher and the student. So the teacher could go in and open up a particular student's slideshow and show the feedback there. I think in one of my videos in a few minutes, you'll see what the feedback looks like from the teacher's end, or how it can be given from the teacher's end. But that's what a takeaway looks like. It is stored in my drive. My Pear Deck folder has folders for each session that I've taught. So here's my takeaways. When I click on it, it's going to have a folder for each takeaway. This is the one for today. So inside that folder, I have from the session today, and then I have a Pear Deck takeaway for each of the people who signed in. Now, most of these people didn't actually complete much of the lesson, but let's say I wanted to give somebody feedback. I could click on someone's, and I could enter comments as the teacher. And then that document is shared between myself, and this happens to be Snow Lewis's. She doesn't have any answers. She was just looking at the slideshow, but I could click here, and as a teacher, I could add notes. So I could send a message to Snow and add some comments about, whatever I wanted to. So when she opens this up the next time, she would see my note. Or she could add notes to this section, and then I would see her notes. The teacher is the owner, but the student has a link. We talked a little bit about takeaways. I want to once again remind you that 6th through 12th grade students, when you publish a takeaway, they automatically get an email that has the takeaway attached. It would be a shared document. Each student's takeaway has a specific email address, and they're the only student who can see that. In grades K through 5 with Pear Deck, if you wanted to share those takeaways individually, you would have to get the URL for that takeaway, and you would have to copy it and paste it into something like Class Dojo, Google Classroom, or Seesaw to send to that particular student. Okay, I think that's just about the end of our presentation. We did talk about this particular slide. There are some more links in it that would help you get started with Pear Deck. One of the ones I want to make sure and talk about is this link. The other thing that is possible is that since it is Google Slides, some of your answers could be text, short answer, or multiple choice, and you can still create a Google Sheet at the end of the session. When you end the session, you can collect all the answers and have it sent into a Google Sheet, and then you could use an add-on called Flubaroo to grade those answers. You would simply answer all the slides as a student, and you might want to put your name being correct answers or answer key instead of your real name, and it would send your answers in to this sheet, and then you would just have the Flubaroo add-on look at that particular set of answers as the correct answer and grade it compared to those answers. This is a link to where you would get the Flubaroo add-on and some more information about it. I can also archive sessions. So some of these are from quite a long time ago. This was from it was from May 17th of 2019. So it's closed. I can go back here and I can archive this session. So it's not going to show up on my list of sessions anymore. If I don't need it, it's on the archived page. I could still get back to it. It's going to show me all the sessions that I've ever had, and probably in order by date, I'm not sure. We have started, based on Teresa Castelaw's advice, collecting links to teacher slideshows that are already made interactive. So these are Pear Decks that were made by Burke County employees that are open for use. So if you are a first grade teacher and you're looking into maybe wanting to use something with the moon, you could go here and click on this, and it might not do it for me because I'm one of the people that helped make this, but if you were not Erin Moody or Christine Snow, it would come up and you would have to make a copy of the slideshow before you would move on. But this slideshow is actually ready to go. The only thing that's not here that you might want, if you were going to use it as a student-paced activity, it would be to add the audio. Since this was made before the audio feature, there is no audio on this page. Miss Moody was thinking about or going to use this in her classroom, so she was just going to share the information out loud as they read the page and then read the question. And she was probably going to do teacher-led, where they would see one page at a time and they would be given a chance to either write or draw on the slides. I think we made this one as an example. It was one of the first ones we made. Here's a slide you haven't seen yet, which is a draggable slide where the students each get to drag back and forth, true and false, to the answers to the questions. So what we're hoping is that people would get interested in creating some Pear decks, but then also sharing them so that we can all work smarter instead of harder. Many of the activities we're making are things that other people might want to use. For instance, this one is, I think, pretty cool. I made emojis, back to school math emojis, and the students can draw and do the work on here and then submit it. So if you're interested, all you have to do is make a copy of these slides from this list. When you click on it, make a copy. It's yours. You can change it. You can add it. You can add your voice. You can take out slides, whatever you like. So if you are willing and you have some Pear Deck slideshows already made, or just slideshows, they don't even have to be Pear Deck, because you could share a science slideshow and then the teacher who uses it could decide what they want to do to make it interactive. You can email those to any of the ITFs and they will add them to this slideshow. Once again, if you have any questions or if there are things that we did not cover, here are the emails that you could contact Teresa, Brandy, or myself, or you could contact your own ITF. So hopefully this video has been helpful.